Hello, welcome to part 11 of the RPG game series, and in this video we're going to be making your game playable. So there's going to be slots and there's going to be main menu. So here, this is the main menu. You press any key to continue. This is our slot 1, okay. Let's create a slot. We get to this customization from part 1. Let's change the race first. Let's re-roll the race. Get we get orc, and let's change the clothes and let's complete this. Okay, there's the loading screen, and there you go. When you press home, it's no longer fresh. See, and when this happens, your character is actually in a safe zone right here. See, that's what you see earlier. Okay, so let's make that, and let me disable this first, that resets your slots every time. So here we have our slot 1. Let's make a new slot 2. Let's make a new slot 3. There's a maximum slot, so you can't keep pressing it. Okay, maybe you want to make a game pass for the new slots, something like that. So this video is about making your game playable. In the first videos, it's about making the systems, right? The zones and everything. And here, if you want to spawn here, you can add in your buildings and stuff, different spawns. So let's go on to the slots first. This video will have 2 parts, the slots and then the main menu system, the flow system, the main menu flow. So first go to data main. So there's going to be a lot of changes here. Okay, first of all, the profile template is different. Look at this. There are slots. The slot template will be inside of each slot. There's active slot, the current active slot 1, 2, or 3, and max slots. How many slots that you can make can be increased with Game Pass if you want to make that. The race pins is inside of the profile template, not inside of the slot template. So what we had earlier, the appearance, the inventory, the weapon, the class, the currencies, they used to be inside of here. Now they're inside of slots. So there's going to be multiple of these inside of slots. Right now it's 3, right? That's the maximum slots. So slot template need setup equals true. That's the default, which means if it's true, then when you go into the game, you will automatically go to the customization area. See, this is why the game flow is important to make your game playable, because at first we didn't even have a flow like that. We just keep pressing the button to customize, right? Just press the button, just press buttons for stuff, just UIs. But here now there's a flow, there's slots. You can switch the slots. And there's the appearance, you put it here, the inventory, the weapon, the class, the currencies, there you go. Okay, and then we have a new function here, module.createSlot profile. So this is a function that copies a table. This is a generic function that copies tables. You don't need to understand what this does. But what this does is to you don't understand what this needs to do specifically, what this does specifically. All you need to know is that this copies tables. Okay, this is a generic function I found in the forum that copies tables. So this copies the slot template into the slots. Okay, and in create slot, we need to check for the player's max slots, profile.data.max slots, and local player slots equals profile.data.slots, the amount of it, right, the length of it. And if the player slots, the length of the player slots is bigger than the player max slots, then we've reached the maximum slots. We return, we don't put the new slot in. Okay, if not, if you don't return, then we copy the slot template by doing deep copy module.slot template, table.insert it into profile.data.slot, slot template copy. So right now we can create slots, but we can't delete slots, and delete slots is actually really complicated, so I recommend you avoid that entirely. And then there's a new function that we make, a new model function that it's called select slot. The parameters are profile and index. So if not profile.data.slots index, so if you don't index it, if the slot doesn't exist, we were invalid slot and return false. If it's valid, then we change profile.data.active slot to index. As you can see, this is a new value, active slot. This determines what slot is active. This is how you find the current active slot of the player, by indexing the slots with the active slot. So here, the player added function. The player is added, right? We automatically set active slot to 1, okay? So that there's no errors. Just 1, set it to 1, and then we can set it later. And we check if next profile.data slots, if it's empty, next gets the first index or the first value of a table actually. So if it's nil, that means there's no indexes at all. We create a new slot first time, and then print first time player created default slot. Okay, we create the slot, and that's the slot system. And yeah, I don't know if I changed anything here. There we go, that's the slot system. And before you continue, I want you to rework your entire system. Let's do that. So for example, in server storage, there's shops currency system. Before we had slots, we just get the data, we just get the currency from the data, not the slots. So what I want you to do is change that so that it uses the profile slot. How? By getting the active slot, profile data active slot, and then getting the slot from there, and then using that. So we don't do profile data to currency. We don't do, for example, we don't do this, for example, profile.data.currencies. That's what we did back then, but now we do the slot, player slot dot currency, something like that. That's the concept. And there's going to be and there's a lot of systems that you make, right? I want you to go over them one by one. Okay, so you can do that by searching profile data, and then you can check which codes use profile service, profile. Okay, we can check which codes use profile and make sure you replace them with slots. Okay, pause the video and come back once you've done that. Next, there's a lot. There's this. I've done it sloppily, but you can make a function for each of these modules so that you can easily get the active slot and then reuse them over and over again. But yeah, there's a lot that uses slots. So what I want you to do is change everything to active slots, okay? And then you test the game. You keep testing it, you test every feature. If it works, you continue the video, okay? And if it doesn't work, then you mess around with the code to use active slots instead of the regular code. Make sure everything works, there's no bugs. Okay, you're back. Okay, cool. Now let's close this. Let's close each of this. So, before I do anything in Replicated First, I have a loading screen, and it's useful for games. So that you don't accidentally see your character in here. If your game loads really fast, then you can kind of see it, but you try your best to hide it, okay? So what you need is a loading UI here. As you can see, this is my loading UI. Wait. See, it looks like this. There's a code. Gets replicated first, content provider. You don't need to do this. Just do game.replicated first. And we remove default loading screen because Roblox has a default loading screen, and then you can replace it with your own loading screen. Here, get player GUI, and then clone the loading UI right here, put it in loading screen GUI, and then do if not game is loaded. We wait for the game to load. So it doesn't wait for everything to load, it just waits for the important things to load. That's it. Okay, and then we wait 1 second and then we destroy the loading screen. So we add the loading screen, and once the game loads, we wait 1 second and we destroy the loading screen. We delete it. Okay. So now for the main GUI, you need this. For the main menu, you need this. You need a safe place. Oops. You need a safe place right here. So basically, before your character enters the game, it is in the main menu, right? Before it enters here, before it enters your multiple spawns, let's say you have multiple spawns, it goes to the safe place. So make a safe place right here. Make a safe place right here, and make sure it's near the loading screen, okay? And then you teleport your character to the safe place. That's the concept. You teleport your character to the safe place, and then you add a force field to it. Okay, so this is the main menu place. This is the main menu place. This is my character. This is the camera. As you can see, cam. Now, you can make a part and position it whatever you want. How do you do that? The most practical way is this. So let's say you want to position your camera here using this studio camera like this. So you want to position it right here, and then you can use the command line. Let's make a part. Part equals instance dot new part. What's cool about this command line is that you can enter multiple lines now. Workspace and part.cframe equals workspace.currentCamera.cframe. You run this. cframe is not a valid member. cframe. There we go. And then there we go, that's the part. And then you can copy and paste the cframe, workspace.part.cframe, you print it, you get the cframe, you copy and paste it, and then you put it into a variable like that. So we don't rely on the part for the position, but we just save the numbers, okay? So there you go. So for the spawn system, we go into spawn main. So there's two parts to this. There's the server and there's the client. So in replicated storage, there's no remotes. There's main menu, there's complete customization, game state change, and slot remote. I think that's it. So here is spawn main, which is in server storage systems. Spawn main right here. So here's the code. Okay, we have attributes like usual. This is the old one. So this is completely different, guys. Okay, this is completely different. And first I'm gonna explain the variables first. There's data main from data systems. We require those. Render appearance, profiles, inventory module server, players. Actually, this isn't needed. You can just do game.players. And then the remotes: game state change, slot remote, profile change. And then there's the module table, of course. It's in every module. And then there's player game states. So this is a table that stores the game state of each player. It's a table because it's in the server and it handles every player's game state. And the game state is main menu, slots updated, select slot, main menu, slots updated, editing, and game, things like that. So here there's the apply attribute. We had this in the previous code. And then there's also state handler. So what this does is it handles the effect when the state happens. So if the state is main menu, then the character goes to the safe place. If the state is editing, then it's something else. But in this case, for editing, for game, we don't need a state handler. This is only for the main menu because the other states don't really need a state handler because the effect is really just one line. We could put it here, we could, but in my code right now, it's just for the main menu. So we get the character by doing player.character or player.character edit weight. We get the root part by doing character weight for child humanoid root part. And then we change the cframe to workspace.safeplace.cframe times cframe.new 0 to 0, so it's not inside of the safe place, but it's on the safe place. And then there's also a force field so that the character is safe, no one can attack them. Instance.new force field character. I set it to visible so that we can tell that it's working or not. And so here's game state change server listener. So we can do on server event. We can do on server event and the parameters would be player, this is the default parameter, and new state. So the client can do game state change, fire server, and send the new state. But here in game state change, it's only main menu. See, if new state isn't main menu, then return end. We set the player game states to new state, we handle the state, and we fire client. We basically tell the client that, hey, the state has been updated. We do this a lot whenever the state has changed. We fire to the client so that the client can handle it with their UIs, with their camera. So the reason why this only handles the main menu is because the game state change for other states gets handled in slot remote. Because after you're in the main menu, you get in the slot remote and you can create a slot and you can select a slot, and that changes the state. So the parameters are player, action, and data. Action is the action the player wants to do, and the data is the data that the player sends. So here the data is index 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so here we get the profile and we check if the profile exists. It's a guard. If not, then return. So here are the actions. If action create slot, select slot, and finish setup. So with create slot, we do data may not create slot profile. And we do slot remote, fire client, player. We fire client the player, slots updated. So this is the event, slots updated. And then we give them the new slots, the new updated slots if they need it. So here's the thing, I forgot to add in a check for the max slots. So let's add in a check. The max slots is in here. Max slots. So we can do this. If profile data max slots is bigger than profile data slots, actually it's this other way around. If slots is bigger than the max slots. Yep, there we go. We add this so that the user can create infinite slots, because let's say you want to add in a game pass for more slots. Okay, So there's select slot. We get the index, which is the data. The index is 1, 2, 3. So when you select slot, there's multiple slots, right? There's slot 1, slot 2, slot 3. So to differentiate them, there's indexes that the client can send, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever. We check if the slot doesn't exist or not. If not, profile.data.slots index, then return. And then we set the active slot to index. We get the slot by doing profile.data.slots index, and then we fire client profile change because the profile has changed. If slot.needs setup, then we change the state to editing. We fire client editing here. Else, player game state to game load character async so that the character responds, and then we set it, and then we fire client game. So need setup is something that's inside of every slot. I think I've explained it before. Here, need setup. So if need setup is true, the slot is fresh and it needs to be instead of customization first, the player needs to customize it. But once it's been customized, then need setup is now false. So then there's finish setup. This is just select setup. This is just select slot. Then there's also finish setup. When you're done customizing, you send an action finish setup. Okay. So we get the slot. We check if it exists or not. We get the data from the client. So the data here is index, and the data here is the appearance table. We change need setup to false. We change player game state to game, and we fire client profile change because there's no changes in the data. We load the character, we respawn them, and then we game state change, fire client game. We fire client this remote game state change. And as you can see, this didn't really need any handler. Like all we need to do is just send the game state change to the player. Although you can put these remotes inside of the handlers, you can do that. Yeah, but that's my reasoning for why the handle state only has main menu. But you can do that if you want it to be more tidy or something. And then there's player added. So it's different from the previous code. We set the player game states player to main menu, okay? And then when the player character is added, when the character is added in, we handle the states. For the, in this case, it's main menu, so they go to the safe place. We apply the attributes. We get the profile. We wait for the profile, okay? And then we initialize the inventory. And for player character appearance loaded, we get the profile, we wait for the profile, we get the slot, we check if the slot exists, and then we render the appearance when the character appearance is loaded. And then when the player is removed, when the player has left the game, don't forget to clear up the table player game states player equals nil. So you play the game, you make sure it's working, you make sure to get teleported to the safe place, something like that, and then that's it for the server. And then we can go to the client. I can tell that it's working. See, we're in the safe place, it's working. And if we respawn, let's try respawning, I think we go back to the safe place too. See, we go back to the safe place too, it's working. So make sure that it's working, and then we can go to the client. Okay, so now we can go into the UI. I'll show you the UI first. There's the overlay UI, which I put the class UI and crunchy UI in here, with the choose class button, with the currency button here. Then there's also game menu icon to go back to the game, to go back to the main menu. And in main menu, I have loading frame, play frame, and slots frame. So in loading frame, there's just loading right here, just text. And play frame, like this, title, and press any key to continue. And in slot frame, there's this. There's the scrolling frame. There's a new the button for creating a new slot. So button here, a text here for the slots, a back icon, a scrolling frame, and instead of the scrolling frame, there's UI grid layout, which is based on name. Sort order is name, so that you sort it from the name 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 instead of giving them just any other name. So we sort them by numbers. And then there's the UI padding, just to add the padding here, and a slot template, which is hidden, and 1. You don't have to add this. We add this in the script. This is just for example, for an example. And in slot template, we did visible false, I think. See, visible false. So for the codes, in main menu there's slot handler, and this is only for the slots, and for the main menu there's a code in the main menu, code in the starter player scripts. It's called main menu client, and then there's customize event right here. So what you want to do first is to change the customize script, customize local script. So for customize TP, I recommend you use cframe.new numbers instead of just the part, because there's streaming enabled, I think. I forgot what it's called. Streaming enabled to true, so that there's a radius to the loaded parts. So if the parts are too far, then it might be nil. So it's just better to ensure that there's a cframe to teleport to. So the main change is this isn't activated by button anymore. We put this in activate customize. Okay, and as you can see, we've made a bindable event here in starter player scripts. What bindable event does is it's like a remote event, but instead of client to server, it's client to client and server to server. It's like an event that any script can fire. Bindable events. It's like having your own event, you know, like touched event, something like that. So here we have customize event, and when customize event is activated, we activate customize. As you can see, we use slot now instead of like normal just data. We use slot, active slot. There we go. And then there is main menu client. Main menu client is not inside of the main menu GUI, because the main menu client is more fixed. Meanwhile, in the GUIs, when you die, this respawns. This gets reloaded. So that's why I put it here. I forgot you can turn off reset on spawn, but this is designed for reset on spawn. So there's the camera C-frame. You don't have to make it like this. It's just a C-frame. So put your own C-frame here. There's the remote game state, remote customize event. There's user input service. There's the player GUI. There's the player. There's the camera. Of course, the main menu GUI, the loading frame, the play frame, the slot frame. So here we have functions, set main menu, and I think that's it. That's just one function, set main menu. So with set main menu, we get the camera, we set it to scriptable, we set the camera C-frame to cam C-frame. We disable every single GUI here except for character creation and main menu. If else, then we disable it, because we don't want to show other UI like currency, like tools, like something else. Okay, and then we wait 5 seconds. We set loading visible, loading frame to false, and play frame to true, because loading frame is enabled first, I think. I don't know, I forgot. So you can erase this. So what set main menu does is that this is the code that runs when it's in the main menu. Like you set the camera, so that it's positioning to the main menu camera. The play frame is set to visible, something like that. That's the main menu code. So there's change state remote right here. Here we reinitialize the variables because you could die. Okay, you could die and the UI might not be valid anymore. Just print state change for debugging, but you can not add this if you want. There's a few state changes here that we can check for: editing, game, and main menu. If it's main menu, then we set main menu. If it's in game, then we set slots frame to visible, play frame to visible, loading frame to true. We set loading frame to true so that there's a transition, so it hides the awkward parts. And we set the camera back to custom and back to humanoid, the subject back to humanoid. And if it's editing, we just set loading frame visible to false and slots frame not visible false, and customize event fire. Let's close this. So in the main menu it says press any to continue. That's why we add a new user input service that input began. So here we check if game processed, then return, because game processed is when you're typing on UIs or doing something else. We don't want that to trigger the main menu, trigger the main game, trigger getting into the game. And then we return if there's user input type mouse movement and focus. So focus just means your camera focuses. It's really you don't have to do anything for your camera to focus, so that's why we disable it. Mouse movement, you move your mouse, there's mouse movement, you disable it so that you don't accidentally go into the game just by moving your mouse or just by doing nothing. And then we just check if play frame is visible. If we're in the main menu, then we set play frame visible false and slots frame visible to true, so that we go into the slots. Now we can see the slots. Now if player.character added, we just set loading frame visible. So character added just means usually there's something going on, some transition going on, like when you play, your character is in a safe spot, the camera is weird, it's looking at a safe space. That's why you turn loading frame visible to true. Or when you respawn, there's this weird transition period where your character is still loading. That's why you set loading frame visible to true. And then we wait for character appearance loaded. Give it 0.5 seconds so that we can load the custom characters. And then we set loading frame visible to false so we can see everything again. And then there's customize here, not customize. And then instead of main menu, there's slots handler. Here are the variables. So there's player, there's replicated storage, there's local player, there's player GUI, there's profile client. We will use this. For the UI, there's main menu, there's slots frame, there's scrolling frame, there's slot template, new slot button, back icon, loading frame, just the frames. There's the slot remote that we can use to create new slot, to get into a slot, things like that. So here is the build slot button. What this does is it builds the slots. It builds the slots in your UI. It creates them by destroying every single button here, refreshing it basically, going to the scrolling frame and clearing everything that is in the slot template. And then we loop through the data slots and we create a new slot template. We create a new slot. We change the name to the strings index, which is 1, 2, 3. We set visible to true, which just shows the button. And there you go, there's your slots. And then we add, if slot needs setup, we go slot new game, else slot and the class. If it doesn't have a class, then it goes no class. We set the parent to scrolling frame, and when it's clicked, we set loading frame visible to true, and slot remote fire server select remote index. The server does everything. So with the slots, you can add more information, like the slot name, custom slot name, or you want to save the character's appearance. If you want to, you can save it there. Somehow you want to add ID, you can do that. You want to add age, you can do that. Save it in the data, and then you can display it here with more UIs. So here's a new slot button like that I've showed. If it's clicked, when we check data.slots is bigger than data.maxslots, and we just print max slots reached and we just return. If not, then we just fire create slot, and then the server does everything. So for the back icon, as you can see, to go back to the main menu, we just set slots frame visible to false and play frame visible to true. So here are the responses. Whenever there is an event, like in the server, whenever the slots updated, like when you enter a slot, or when the slots gets created, when there's a new slot created, or something like that. I forgot what it was. It fires to the client, right? We fire to the client a lot. Slots updated, and we just rebuild it just like that. We rebuild the slots. We set data.slots to the slots, so we get the newest data, and then we build slots for the initial build. That's it. That's it. It's pretty simple. The client is pretty simple. As you can see right here, we send to the client a lot for event-based actions. And here for the main UI, for the overlay UI, I mean, when you're inside the game, for the button that goes back into the game, it just fires game state change, fire server main menu. It's just like that. And then the server will do the rest, and then the client receiver will do the rest. The loading could be better, but I don't know how to polish it more. So I think we've done a lot in this RPG game series, and I think this is a very fitting video at this point in the series. So I think if you want to continue with your own code, or if you want to have your own ideas, there's the systems there, you can implement it yourself. There's an entire flow too, from start to beginning, from the main menu to the game. You can add in multiple spawn points if you want, and then there's the zones that we made in the last video, right? So yeah, I think this is good. I think this is a fitting video at this point in the series, and see you. Thank you so much for watching.